Hello and welcome to C.A.T.C Studios. Today, I'm going to do a review, but not a movie review. Today, I'll be reviewing a video game. Coming off of E3, there were lots of great games announced, so I figured I would review a game that was particularly relevant to E3. Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. I will give Mario plus Rabbids a score in each category and figure out where it places on the new ranking system, the C.A.T.C Studios Game Meter. Let me be clear, this review will contain spoilers. The game has some big surprises in store, so do not watch this review if you have not played/finished the game. The first category is graphics. The graphics in the game are really good. All of the character models are amazingly animated and all the landscapes have great graphics. The style's not necessarily realistic, but the style matches the cartoony nature of the game. I mean, imagine a realistic Rabbid. Actually, nope, it's better to keep that image out of your head. There aren't any points I can think of where the graphics are bad. That's about it. Not much to say. Graphics are good. The score for graphics is 10 out of 10. This category basically means how many types of players will want to play this game. This game is actually accessible to many different players. Since it is the merging of two different series, it needed to please a lot of people. The game may not have too many elements that are familiar to Mario or the Rabbids, but the ones that they do have are really good. This game is a tactical game, it's a puzzle game, and it's a world exploration game. There's a lot of material for a lot of different players in this game. The problem is, the game is all about battle tactics. If you don't like grid-based battle games, you're probably not going to like it. Although, if you have never played a grid-based battle game, this is a very good one to start with. The score for accessibility is 9 out of 10. The next category is characters. Good characters can make or break a game. I can see how people would be nervous about crossing over Mario with Rabbids. For the most part though, I would say that the franchise's different characters complement each other nicely. The contrast between the heroic Mario and the zany Rabbids is hilarious. There are lots of hilarious gags that the Rabbids do. And they don't defile the Mario series at all. Okay, they don't defile the Mario series much. Next, shall I discuss the bosses? Maybe I should start with Rabbid Kong, the boss who literally had an entire DLC pack for him to be the villain. If he doesn't return in Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, then there's no justice in the world. There are not too many memorable bosses other than him. Oh wait, I just remembered. There was an extremely memorable boss. Tom Fan. Or should I say, the Phantom of the Poplar. He single-handedly created the #1 song of 2017. Wait. Now for Bowser Jr. I personally think it was a good move to cut Bowser out of the game for the most part. Spawny would have been more likely to create unsolvable problems if it was Bowser who kidnapped him. No, I think Bowser would have been more reluctant to take over the Mushroom Kingdom using a literal bunny. Whereas Bowser Jr. is more like, well, when life gives you lemons. Speaking of said literal bunny, Spawny was hilarious, adorable, and I love everything about him. I also need to talk about Beepo. Beepo was good for the most part. He has a few moments where he gets frustrated, to say the least. His arrogance gets a little bit annoying after a while, but he's not unbearable like some assistants. The score for characters is 9.3 out of 10. The fourth category is story. The game in this story is convoluted on paper but easily explained to the player. The Rabbids appear in some Nintendo fan/inventor's basement, and one Rabbid puts on a headset that can merge two things into one thing. Then this Rabbid starts conjuring Rabbid enemies and heroes, and he transports all of the Rabbids into the Mushroom Kingdom and causes a bunch of chaos. The hero Rabbids then join forces with the hero Mario characters and start defeating all of the evil Rabbids created by what the inventor calls the Super Merge. But the more enemies they kill, the more they feed a giant vortex growing above the Mushroom Kingdom called the Megabug. The Megabug grows and grows until it becomes a strange dragon-like creature that kidnaps Spawny and takes over Bowser's body. They defeat it, and the Rabbids live happily ever after in the Mushroom Kingdom. Until the sequel that they made. The story is a classic MacGuffin story to match the style of the game. The second world of the game flounders a little bit with the story. The third does a little better, but the ending of the third world was kind of disappointing because everything that you did in the third world was just a trick by Bowser Jr. The fourth world is extremely involved with the story ever, and it's really fun and exciting to play through. I also love the twist at the very tail end where they reveal that the person who was sending them letters the whole time was actually a future version of Beepo. Then they have a great story to carry the expansion of the Donkey Kong Adventure DLC. It's simple but a lot of fun. The score for story is 9 out of 10. Coming next is gameplay. The gameplay is so much fun. The battle system is really easy to understand, and it's very satisfying to defeat the Rabbid enemies. Mostly because the Rabbids are extremely disturbing creatures. Other games have things that can get tedious after a while. At no point in the game do things get tedious. Later on in the game, the battle system can get familiar, but not tedious. Especially since the game is constantly adding in new elements to keep the battle fresh. Such as adding in new characters, different weapons, environmental dangers, new enemies, and lots of different objectives. The puzzling sections are very fun too. The different actions that Beepo can do as the game progresses adds nice variety. The controls are not complicated at all. The only annoying thing in the gameplay is how annoying it can be if you accidentally mess something up. Such as accidentally selecting the wrong cell for the character to move to. It doesn't happen often, but when it does happen, it's really annoying. Trust me. Really annoying. The score for gameplay is 9.5 out of 10. Next on the list is modes. The game has an abundance of ways to play. The main mode of the game is the story mode. That's not the only mode it has though. It also has a multiplayer co-op mode and a multiplayer versus mode. It also has a challenge mode that you unlock after the story mode. It also has the Donkey Kong expansion, I guess not mode, but campaign. But that's paid DLC and it's still a story mode. My motto that I'm coming up with as of this moment is go all the way or don't go at all. Some games have very few modes, but the modes that they do have are the ones that the company puts their all into. I feel like Ubisoft put their all into the story modes and added on the extra modes at the last second. There's nothing particularly wrong with these modes, but they have less content than the rest of the game. This doesn't go for the Donkey Kong DLC mode. The DLC was great. That's simply all there is to it. The game's modes feel like a half-hearted effort. The score for modes is 8 out of 10. Seventh is genre. This game is a tactical, grid-based battle game with several different puzzling sections. Well, for starters, this is an extremely unique game within the tactical genre. Most other grid-based battle games are extremely dark, but this one takes a different approach. It's more lighthearted and less intense. This doesn't hamper the amount of strategy the game requires, though. You can only have so many characters in your party. Of course, Mario is locked into the party, but 2 other characters, you have to choose them. Depending on the situation, your strategy can change entirely. Each character has a different special ability, mobility, and technique. So the way that you strategize can vary greatly depending on what situation you find yourself up against. As if that wasn't enough to make strategy tricky, they also add in tons of other stuff. Special effects, battle hazards, and different objectives. Although they stay away from making everything overly confusing, the battle elements are extremely involved. but not confusing at all. The score for genre is 10 out of 10. Next is difficulty. Was it a little bit too easy, like some games? Or was it too hard, like other games? My playthrough of the game took about a week. If you compare that to some of my other records, that's actually pretty long. I would say that I found the game to be fairly well balanced. I have heard that some found the final world to be fairly challenging. I agree, it's definitely a lot more challenging than the previous worlds, but it's not completely impossible. Although that is a definite problem that some people have come across. However, I'd say the difficulty rose at a steady rate that matched the progression of the game. The score for difficulty is 9.2 out of 10. Second to last is the soundtrack. The composer behind this game is Grant Kirkhope, the same genius composer behind Banjo-Kazooie. You'd probably assume that the composer for a game named after musical instruments would have to be really good. You would assume correctly. Hooray! Grant's score for this game makes you feel like you're on a grand adventure. One thing I like about the soundtrack is how it very clearly distinguishes from battle music and exploration music. The battle tracks are sped up and they have a lot of drums in the background to add urgency. Meanwhile, exploration music is more calming and more relaxed. It adds to the lovely atmosphere created. I really like the melody they created for the Sherbet Desert. But I really wish they had spent more time creating an established melody for other locations. Tracks are good everywhere else, but they're even better when Grant takes the time to truly come up with a melody and spread it out. A few highlights in the soundtrack: Worlds Collide, Sunny Side Up, Mid-Boss Mayhem, Power Tweeter, Hot Start, Cold Finish, The Phantom's Phenomena, Fahrenheit Forge, Bowser Begins, and The Phantom Song. Literally, whose idea was it to put a random opera number in the middle of a game about crazy bunnies, a plumber shooting guns, and a giant turtle monster thing?
None of this makes sense.
Because whoever it is, they deserve a raise. The score for soundtrack is 9.3 out of 10. The final category is post-game. Does the game get you to keep coming back after you finish the main game? I'd say it very much does. The game has a Seasons Pass that gives even more weapons, a brand new mode, and the Donkey Kong Adventure DLC. Not to mention it's got some extra super-de-duper-de challenges that the game throws at you after it's done. Not to mention, after the worlds are completed, they change their battlefields into extra challenge stages. Not to mention, finishing the worlds unlocks an entire hidden chapter inside of the world, each with new battles. Not to mention all the hidden collectibles littered throughout each world that you can go back and find. There's a ton of content to keep you playing after the game is finished. If you're a pro though, it'd probably be easy to finish all these extra challenges, and then there's not much to keep you coming back. The score for post-game is 9.5 out of 10. Mario plus Rabbids is a splendid game. It is the Space Jam of the video game world. It's a fun and exciting experience that very much deserved and received a sequel. That's about it for this C.A.T.C Studios game review. If you want to see some movie reviews or the Nintendo Cinematic Universe I'm fan casting, then please subscribe so you don't miss anything. That's about it, and I will see you later.
Who do you think you are? You should kneel on the star. You are nothing but a parody. I find your good role in a tragedy. It's a million nights ago, the only words you know. My heart will touch your princess's heart, and you will be put apart. You think you'll win this tournament, I send you to retirement. You saw not worth the hustle. Your princess is none but a cousin. time.